Something. What if I told you that there's a simple and a small little secret that actually keeps 89% of entrepreneurs, the business owners, CEOs, and what I like to call their key leaders stuck? And yes, that's what I'm saying. There is something that keeps 89% stuck and separates 11%. What if everything that you believed in about business growth, about a way to strategize and grow, wasn't right? What if there were some things that were a little bit different or wrong with that? What if the real reason that you struggled to scale or to build, it's not just because you needed to hire more people, it's not because you needed to work harder, right? A lot of times we think that we need to work a little bit harder, we need to put more time in, we need to put more hours in. The other thing I come across when I talk with a lot of entrepreneurs, it's all about the systems, right? Now, there's some truth to all of this. I'm not saying it's not about working hard. I'm not saying it's not about having some of the right people. I'm not saying it's about having the right systems, but there is something that differentiates, again, what I'd like to say, those that are in that top tier that tend to move forward with less effort than those that are stuck in the 89%. It's because we're not following the same thing. Well, what I guess I should say, if you're stuck and you feel like you're in there, it's because you're using what I like to refer to as a flawed strategy. And that flawed strategy is the same thing that 89% of the different entrepreneurs, the business owners, CEOs, and those key individuals are following, and it's stopping them from breaking free. So, what I'm excited to talk about here is what the top 11% of business owners do, how they think differently. What I like to refer to this is it's because they're not following the old playbook or what used to be the best way to get things done. And a lot of us think it's hard work, a lot of effort. And what they're doing is they're getting not caught. In essence, they're getting out of the cycle that tends to cause stress. It adds complexity. And at the end of the day, it just adds exhaustion and it makes things that we're doing in business a little bit harder. And they're doing all of that. And they're doing what I like to do this painlessly, okay, without having to sacrifice their time, their sanity, or even their personal freedoms. So there's a myth, okay, that's keeping you stuck. And this is exactly what I'm going to be showing you today. I want to walk through this. And so it's going to be how to grow your business effortlessly without adding more complexity and adding more stress. It's the one shift. And again, this is the one big thing that I have come across when I've worked with many, many different entrepreneurs and business owners and myself that actually separates the 11% from the 89% who actually struggle. And I'm going to refer to this as the painless framework, which is a simple step by step process that helps eliminate the friction and helps you find success. And it's what you've been looking for. So I'm just going to kind of back off here and I want to talk about this. And by the way, if you're with me and you're going to follow part of what we do, I put together a workbook that you can also download and it actually walks through and it will be a recap of a lot of the different things that I'm going to talk about as we put that together. So, by the way, if you're the person, if you're there and you felt like you've kind of been trapped in your own business, no matter how much you still grow or how much you're pushing forward and you're still working harder than ever, then I'm going to ask for you to keep on watching so you can see a little bit more about how I break this down. So how do you shift from what I like to call is this flawed strategy? How do you shift from what 89% of the entrepreneurs out there do that seem to just be stuck? And how do you begin to be one of those top 11% of business owners that actually thinks about things differently? Now, again, looking at this, I'm going to share some of the things that happen on this. What I want to talk about is why they tend to fail, why 89% of the entrepreneurs are struggling. And I call this, and I say that most entrepreneurs out there, they don't scale, they stack. And I like to put this, it's like the whole weight of the business is on your back, it's on your shoulders, right? And so there are things that you stack on you. You stack on more hours, right? You're stacking on more systems, you're stacking on more people. At the end, it stacks on more stress. And all of this in the stack. And somehow, despite all your efforts, guess what? Nothing gets easier, right? So again, more hours, more time. Hey, we put a better systems in, that's going to solve it. Hey, if we get the right people, this is going to solve it. At the end, we just seem like there's kind of this never-ending stress that kind of hangs around. In addition to that stack, I like to call this as kind of the additional stack here. Are there a few things that come together? If you think about this, you're investing more time, tools, automations potentially. You're thinking, hey, maybe it's a learning piece, but instead of getting clarity, what you feel like is there's actually more overwhelm that's kind of coming all together. You're finding that the team is probably growing or you're moving forward, but you're still feeling that you're the one who's actually having to handle all the problems. And this everything kind of comes back to you, right? You tend to be, I could maybe refer to this as, I like to call this kind of just the bottleneck, right? And it just seems like there's a lot and a lot. The other thing, and this is where I used to be, and I've been there, and I still sometimes fall into this category. But with the things I'm going to tell you about, it's a great way to kind of get yourself back out of there. I find that my calendar, it's full, right? And you're thinking that even though it's full, man, I just am not seeing the additional money. I'm not seeing the increase in the revenue. I'm not seeing the increase in the profits. I'm not seeing the business grow the way I want. And again, I've been in this place where I've been stacking and my days have been packed. Your day looks like this and it's just filled, filled, filled. And at the end of the day, when you're done, you're just like not sure that I got more done in the time, or if I've moved the business forward, if I moved myself forward. Well, just you're not alone. This is not uncommon. In fact, it is common with most entrepreneurs. In fact, the number I used to think about is I'm like, oh, it's 92% of them. And we can talk about this in another video. I went and kind of looked at some calculations, and how I came out with part of the 11 to 89% is through a lot of studies that are done with businesses over time. Is more and more businesses tend to get stuck and they tend to fail again. And this is why it's the longer you have a business, there's few and fewer of them that actually make it past the 5 year, and fewer of them that make it past 10 years, and even fewer that make it past 15. And I believe that this is one of the key pieces. Is I've spent a lot of time with different entrepreneurs, and helping them scale and take their businesses from where they're at to where they want to go. This is a big one, and you're not alone. 89% of people, they stay stuck in this cycle. And again, I like to say this is one of the biggest challenges that comes up. A lot of studies been done on us kind of staying in the spots where we're having a hard time breaking free. So they believe that scaling is adding, and they're not going to. And I never thought it was. I didn't think it was. I didn't call it complexity, but I believe this is what we do. But that's actually the very thing that's ending up killing your freedom, your time, and your profits. So the 11%, I like to tell you, they actually play a different game. Okay, and it's actually a fairly different game. And at this point, if I can kind of share this, and you're like, well, what is it and why is it different? Let me just talk about one thing to help you maybe find some clarity in this. Is we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And I'm pretty sure if you're to think about it, you probably know a friend or have a business owner that just seems like things go easy. You might even say they're a little bit luckier. Now, yeah, you can say that there's some luck in business, but if you're not prepped and you can't take advantage of it, you don't see it, a lot of other things, then you're really not even poised, even if luck comes your way to move forward. But they just seem like things are easier. Everything they do tends to move a little bit faster. It feels like that they're able to take more time off. Maybe they're the ones that are always out on the golf course and like, how in the world are these people doing it? And the big thing is again, they're playing a different game. Remember, they're not looking at that old playbook that they're doing it. So they know that growing isn't about working harder. And this is a challenge because I still get caught in this. I'm telling you, this is almost a daily process for me. Is how can I step back? Because it's not the grind. It's not the harder. It's about removing friction. If you think about this and you're trying to push something on the ground, if it's something that you can do to remove an obstacle or make it slipperier, it moves easier. So if we can remove friction in front of us, those things help things move quicker and move faster, and requires less effort. So again, once you can see what I'm going to bring up, everything's going to change. Well, who am I? I'm excited to introduce you how what I call this personal business growth, and I'm going to refer to, and I'm going to show you this pamphlet here in just a minute. It's called Painless, and I want to refer to this to you. But I'm Nathan Ersnosnik. I help entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs, and what I like to call their key team members eliminate friction, simplify growth, and strategize in part of the way that they move their business forward, so they can actually grow without the stresses, without the a lot of the challenges that exist in today's world with a lot of different entrepreneurs. So I built the Painless framework. So this is what I put together. I've shared this with many people. It's one of the first things I get into a business and I talk about. I get everybody around, everybody on their teams around, and we talk about this, because what I have found is that without this Painless framework in the way, I'm telling you, man, there is just a ton of friction that's been built into our lives, into who we are, into our personalities, into our business, into our processes and our system. So I've seen this over and over again. Okay. And it's amazing that the entrepreneurs, and what I find is that we just continue for some reason, we love to drown in the details about everything that's going on. We're convinced, right, that more work is the only way to get it done. It's the only way to get there. What I like to talk about is, this is the world that we see. It's this complex place. It's like, hey, if we can put all these things in order, and by the way, this is where I tell you, I've been here and I still get caught in this all the time. But I'll tell you, it's actually simpler. It's a way to look at, how do we just do this? What's the easy road? And that might not be the case, but I'll tell you, my goal this year is simple Like, how simple can I do something and good enough? I'm always about making things perfect. I want it to be right. I don't want anybody to be disappointed when I work with clients or if it's a customer. You always are worried about over delivering. I put the weight of their success and their business's success on my shoulders. Not always a great thing to do. So I personally am working on getting rid of the complexity and simplifying, and I am using my own words and my own trainings and my own teachings to do so. So why is this and what is this? Well, just so you know, I would tell you I was stuck in this 14 years. My last venture took me to double the size of the business, and going from $5 to $10 million. And once I began to understand some of these key things and a few other things that I work with entrepreneurs on, I was able to move from 10 to 30, just under $30 million in a little less than 3 years. And so you can see that there's a different trajectory when you begin to understand the difference between what might be considered complex and how we keep things simple. So I am the owner of ThriveWorks 360. This is my business, and I love 360 because I like the iterative nature, meaning you kind of repeat it. And in our lives, this painless is the same thing. So if you were to think about, again, the book and part of the play, a lot of people think once you go through something, you're done. And everything that we build, we believe that we have different phases in our lives, we have different phases in our business. And the goal is to continue to move back through that, because once you've gone through something, you now have different perspective. Therefore, your perception's different. You can ask a different set of questions. And this is one of our mottos that we have right here. So I am a big believer, and you can see there's a couple key things here. So it's U to the X multiplied or times by your business to the Y. These two things are what I believe an amazing, potent combination, which leads to exponential potential. And I'm a big fan, like you saw me talk about a little bit earlier, is a lot of the times we think it's a process. And I do believe we need processes in business. In fact, if you want to find out more about what we do, I'd encourage you to take a look, visit my website. You can find a way to download this booklet as well, this workbook that goes along with the painless. But I have something I call in here, I call it the Bridge 360. I have a Bridge 360, which is the front end of where and how you find clients and customers. I then do have processes that I think are critical to implement in business, and that is what we call the Autopilot 360. Those two things are what I consider are great multipliers for the business. And this is a U. And so this painless process that I'm going to talk about with you today actually works in both of these things. You can look at this personally to say, how am I living my life, or how am I operating the business painlessly, or using the painless process, and how might I apply this to my business? If you're a product, you're in the product business, you sell products, etc. You can think about this regarding your goods and your services. If you're in the service business, you can ask the same thing. It's like, how do we make this, and think about the innovations and the design and the sales of our products in a painless way as well. So I'm excited to talk to you about that, about how U to the X is you and your teams, how this can help impact that, and how this also impacts your business multiplied to the Y with your products and services. And so this is the case, right? But what if, and this is something to think about, what if, business, what if success, the things that you were doing, they did not have to be painful? And you can use your own terms of pain. In fact, right now, you might say I'm sitting in a little bit of that tonight. It is a little bit later in the evening as I'm working through this, and I'm working hard today. Yeah, I don't know. Does it need to be this painful? Do I need to spend this much time? Do I need to think about waking up in the morning and thinking about all the challenges that are ahead of me? I do not believe that's the case. So what if you could remove, okay, the roadblocks that were keeping you stuck? What if that's the case? What are those, right? So that your business actually worked. And what I love to say is that it actually worked for you and not against you. And I think that's one of the key things. So there is some truth that you can understand and learn from that. Let me break this down. And what I want to do is I want to talk about how this will help you become one of the 11% and unlock new potential for yourself, for your team, your key individuals. And it's one of the most simple and overlooked secrets that I think exists out there. Again, a lot of it is that we just don't know. And some of those things we don't know are opportunities for us to tie into those. So I like to talk about some of those small, simple secrets. It's that growth isn't just about big changes. And this is a true thing, because I believe a lot of the times, and I've heard this with other business owners, it's like, yeah, I just need that one big thing. What's this one item? If we can just hold on to this, or if we can find that, it's going to completely change our business. So it's not about one big thing. It's not about the big change. It's also about discovering what I like to call are the small insights that actually lead to some of the biggest wins. So think about this: small insights that lead to what I call bigger wins. Well, what is this? And I thought about this analogy, and in this booklet, in fact, on the front cover, one of the things that I put on here, it's the Painless Playbook, and I put transform your success, and I call it the golden nuggets of painless growth. And I refer to that because I think this is what a lot of us do. And if you can think about this, the real challenge is that we're just busy. We're moving ahead. In fact, this picture, we're always looking out here of kind of what's next. Now, some of us don't probably do that far enough because we're always worried about today. We're worried about the next week. We probably aren't planning far enough ahead. But in doing so, what ends up happening is we miss a lot of what I like to call the small golden nuggets that are right at our feet, that are right in front of us, that were right next to that, were right part of that previous conversation. And so again, that's always because we tend to be, again, we're looking and we're not catching these small nuggets. And so that you've been overlooking and you've been leaving them on the ground. And all this is because you've been hoping for a big win. So if you think about this, what I like to talk about is by the time you pick up one nugget, you're like, it's just a small nugget. Well, the thing is once you collect 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, 30, 50, 100, what I like to talk about is you end up with bags of golden nuggets. That is transformative. Okay. So if we miss and we're missing these smaller golden nuggets on the way and we're looking for the big ones, what we're going to find is that we're going to miss bags in handfuls of these smaller opportunities that actually lead to some of the bigger wins. So think for a moment, and I want you to think about this because this is a place for you to try to ask, am I in this position or how might I be thinking? So have you ever thought that won't work for us? That won't work for me. Hey, we've already tried that. I'll tell you, I've said those things before. This doesn't fit our model. Hey, this doesn't fit what we're doing. Too often, you're asking, is this really for me? This kind of goes back. We already tried that, but we've tried this before, haven't we? Like, do we really need anything else? I don't know. Is this going to be the right fit? And I will tell you, we are set up as humans because we don't like to burn calories in our minds. It's just simply how we're built is, it feels like there's friction. And so what we tend to do is we are a little bit opposed. And I like to kind of consider some of this is, it kind of comes in because we might be thinking of change. And it's like, hey, is this change? But let me just tell you, this is what the painless process is all about. And I'm going to break this down into two major sections. We're going to have the pain part and we're going to have the less. So we got pain and less. And so we're going to break down what pain is. And I'm going to talk about why and how that gets applied to less. So what painless is, and by the way, if you can remember this, it's amazing. It's simple. I think about this all the time and it's plausibility. So how plausible can something be? What's then if something can be plausible, if we can find this gold nugget, what and how might we apply it? So what's the applicability? Then if it's applied and it can be applicable to me, then it's like, how do we implement that? If we can implement it, a lot of people start to think about this. If you think about a new process, and I'll use maybe this in technology. Let's maybe talk about this. It could be hard. I don't really. Well, a lot of times you can find something from out of the industry that's been amazing and you can bring it into industry and it feels like a brand new innovation. And that's because they thought about, hey, it's plausible. How do we apply it? What does this look like when it's implemented? And then the biggest thing, this is one of the biggest that I think actually will unlock this for you, is nuancing. It needs to be made specifically more to be how you would do it. If this is personally in your life, you can think about, hey, how might I make something like that be nuanced for me? This also has two meanings to me because if it's implemented, often as it is implemented at the first, it does not stay. It does need to be slightly tweaked and updated and reworked. So there's this nuancing. So again, pain, plausible, applicable, implementable, and nuanced. Okay. What I like to talk about though is if we're going to think about doing something both in our lives personally or as in behalf of our business, then there is this other part that you stack with it. And that means, hey, we can make things to have less labor. And if they're laborless, that means we can spend they require less effort. If we can do less labor, less effort, guess what? We're going to find that it's less stress. So we're stressless. And at the end of the day, the goal is to make things seamless. So this is, and I will stay with me here because what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this in half. I'm going to give you some examples on what each one of these are. And again, I don't want to forget, but if you want to, you can download the workbook that I have here. It actually asks you and gives you questions to ask about the things that you're doing. Both, remember, I've talked about at the beginning here, the U to the X times your business to the Y. This can be applied personally with you in your life and some changes that you might need to make. This could also be applied to the business and changes that need to be made within your business. Okay, so let me go ahead and break this down. So this is how the painless model works. And I'm going to break this out. I'm going to walk through the pain parts first. So this is plausible, and I'll give you a little bit more. So plausibility, and what I like to talk about is spotting the potential ideas that can truly move the needle. And what I like to say is, what's the smallest golden nugget that you can pick up in the conversation? Now, I'll just give you an example. If you're in a room You probably heard a couple other people talking, and at the end, you kind of tune out. That's not for me. Might not be for you, but let's just use that as an example. I wish I had a specific one I can share to you, but I'm not coming up with one right now. But the question is might there have been something small in that conversation that if you were to over have heard it, you can pull something small out that, from a plausible standpoint, could apply to you, could apply to your business. If any of you have been to any business retreats, seminars, amongst other things, I'm guessing that it's a little bit easier for you to say, hey, that makes sense. That's plausible. I think that that can be applied in this way to my business. Oh, this is how I'm going to implement it. And by the way, this is what I'm going to do to fine tune that. So some of you probably have known that you have gone through this. My goal is to have you step back and think about some of the smaller opportunities that present yourself and where you should not shrug those off, and find out what makes it. So, how can you spot the small potential ideas that really can start to make a difference? Applicable, again, small tweaks that can truly take any idea and move them into a real opportunity. So, this is where you can say, look deeper. How might I adapt? How might I refine this? What might I do in order to fit this into part of my business? So, this is like, how could that apply? Where might that apply? Why might that apply to my business? And then we're going to say, hey, if it is, and we can find a way for the application, we will want to look at is, well, then how do we implement it? So, what does success, how does it come from the execution, right? Having it something that we think is plausible, think that it can be applied, but not implementing it, not being able to do so, obviously is not going to move you forward. So, the key thing is hey, we want to break that down into a couple simple steps. The first step that you might even say, what might be the first way that I can actually make this happen for my business? And this is where a lot of other people, when I came back here to these set of questions, and a lot of us think of this, hey, this isn't working. We've already tried this model doesn't fit. A lot of that comes because you're not thinking about the nuancing. Well, that's nice. It, as it looks, might not work for you in that way. Get over that. Step back and say, is there something about this that could help me think or see something differently? Is it, in a way, something that would allow me to facilitate things? And how might I nuance it? How might I take that and make that a little bit more specific to my purposes? I'll tell you, the world is filled with gold nuggets for you if you're simply allowing yourself to think on how you can nuance those. And that means slightly take something from what was its strict piece and then change it ever so slightly so that it fits you. All right. So now that we know part of that is part of the pain, we're going to look at the less. So this is what the less is. And then I have some other examples because I think that people, and I'm going to talk about the old playbook for you. And I'm going to say, and I might get you on this because my question is have you had some of these thoughts? So stick with me here. We're going to go through labor list really quick. This is the labor list part. Again, part of it is this is the less part. So labor is to eliminate the busy work. If there's possibility, one is like to say automate or get rid of the task, and anything you can do to free up time if you're going to be applying this thought that you have, again, this plausible piece that became applicable, implemented, you're nuancing it. Great. Now the key thing is if we're going to do this, how can we just put a little bit less labor, less time? And I would then say it moves right into less effort, right? How do we make this effortless? So every action could be simple. You know, what your goal is if you're going to do this, how does it amplify results instead of draining? I think this is a really big differentiation because a lot of people, when they think of something, they're like, it's going to drain my time. It's going to drain my resources. Great. What if we were to flip that? How might we think that it amplifies this? I'll use marketing. I'm big. I've had 17 years in the marketing world as well, marketing and sales, as part of a visionary. And with this, one of the things is like, oh, marketing. What's the budget? What are we going to do? What are we going to get in place? One of the things that's really interesting is an amplification. Is if you understand the true nature of marketing, is that if there is a dollar spent, then there can be a return on that. And so I like to talk about infinite budgets when I talk with businesses. Like, what are you talking about? We don't have infinite money. Well, you do, as long as there's return on that exceeds part of the costs and it balances out correctly. So if $1 turns out five, that's a pretty good gig. And that's a way of thinking from an amplification versus a drain. And we're not going to get into this, but it could be the difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. So if there is this effortless, how might you look at amplifying it so that it's not draining energy? Again, I would talk about reducing our wasted efforts and avoiding burnout. So these are all parts of the thing you can think of to make things effortless. At the end, if you think these stack, so if it's laborless, it's effortless, then what we can find is how do we make it stressless, right? Building a system that cuts out some of the noise, simplifying part of the decisions. What I like to say is if you're doing these things, what might help make this a slightly more self-sustained process, self-sustained business? And at the end, your goal is when you do all these things is that things become seamless. Okay. They align with the actions. If you think about this, communication, customer experiences, all these things, when you walk through them, can work to the benefit of you, making them seamless. So, this is, in simple, the less part of making business painless. Now, I'm going to go through each one of these and I'll read this in a little bit more detail. Again, if you want, I do have a workbook that walks through and it lets you walk through some things that you're currently doing in your work. It lets you think about things in your personal life. So I'd highly recommend that to take a look at that. But plausibility. So if you think about this again, the big key thing about this is shifting your mindset, okay, from the things that won't work. And I love this really just to how can this work? And to me, this is the big thing. How can this work? How can this work for me? How can this work for us? And finding the opportunities. And to me, if you work with me, any of my team members, you'll know I talk about staying curious because one of the things I have found is that we do not honestly care enough to understand where somebody else really comes from. We're not curious enough. We think we know. And I'll tell you my brief story on this is I used to think that I was open to all sorts of ideas when it came to new products, when it came to new processes. And I just kept on hearing like, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not. And I'm like, how is not? Like, I'm so open to any idea. And what I found out is oftentimes when I'd hear something, I would go 3 to 5 steps down the road and I was already having conversations and nobody knew, but I never even asked the question, understood really what the backing was. Why did they even think from their perspectives? What was their perception regarding this? So I ended up getting to a point where we started talking about when I met with people is, hey, are we okay? And I would teach them and train them, and then they would teach and train me is, can we plant this in as, let's pretend this is a seed and let's water this. Let's ask a set of questions. How can we be more curious? How can I step back? And I find, by the way, if you're a business owner and you're one of the key entrepreneurs or you're the visionary for your company, I will tell you that this is why you're stuck. Because often you're probably one of the first ones to speak. You're probably the one who's making the final decisions. And what you're not doing is you're not staying curious. You're not extracting the thoughts and the insights, and you're not extracting and finding those golden nuggets from those people that are around you. And that's probably why it's all about. And you're not trying to make it all about you, but I'm telling you, at the end of the day, everything's about you having to make sure things are where they need to be. So I'm going to ask and tell you this number one in plausibility to me is don't be looking and shift from again what won't work to how can this work? How? I wonder how that might work and stay curious about it. Okay. This is some things to know. Am I caught in this trap? This might be some things if you're saying plausibility, this helps you avoid and dismissing ideas too soon. So this is one of the big things. This is going to help you avoid this. This isn't how things are done in our industry or in my business. We often hear that. You probably, if it's not you, it's somebody sitting next to you. Hey, we don't have the time or the money to explore these new ideas. Hey, if it was a good idea, someone else would have done it already. Yeah, okay, sure, buddy. I don't want to take the risk if it all, what happens if it all fails? We've survived long enough without doing anything. Why change? And all these type of things, by the way, if you cannot apply plausibility, it's going to keep you stuck. Okay. It's going to keep you playing things safe. That's fine. You might find a 5% growth year and you might consider that good instead of 15, 30, 50, 100%. You're going to be missing out on new opportunities and you're going to continue to miss innovation. So this is what my biggest thing is on part of plausibility. Okay. Keep it up. Don't get trapped and caught in this old method of doing things. The next one I have is applicable. Okay. Make it work for you. So think about this. If something was plausible, then simply all we need to decide is how do we make this work for us, right? So seeing the potential in everything, small tweaks can turn any ideas into great opportunities. Again, look deeper, adapt, refine, fit it to your business as you do and move ahead. Okay. Don't stay caught in the 89% of the old way that people do this. And now think about this again. So what applicability does, it reverses not seeing how it could fit. And so it's going to flip that. And this is what you might be stuck in. So this is the old playbook again. This won't work for our customers, or this doesn't work for a particular type of customer, or that's not what they need, or that's not what we're going to need to do for them. Our business is different. That doesn't really apply. By the way, I would say that this is probably one of the easiest ones to fall into, just because, again, you probably have this business you've nuanced. And if you're thinking about this, it's just like, it's not really like ours. And I'll tell you, like, that's probably one of the first things I'll hear in any situation with any groups of people is, oh, we're different. Oh, that's not for me. Oh, that's not exactly like me. And I'll tell you, man, that's an excuse. Okay. The question is how can it be for me? Remember that. If we have to change something to make it work, then it's not worth it. So this is us trying to come up with the value of what this is before we even start. I'm not opposed to asking and looking at an ROI and a time investment, But man, don't even start there before you've come to an ability to think about how you can apply it in your life or in your business. I don't see how this connects to what we do is another great question. People are probably, if you've asked yourself that, if you said that at the table, stop it right now. Think about how you're applying Painless. That sounds great, but it's not realistic. Whew, man, these are just a few. I'm guessing we can come up with a list of 20 different things or statements that you and or someone around you might be saying. And again, what this does is this is going to keep you stuck, and it's going to keep you rejecting ideas before they're fully explored, but before they're fully explored, and you've even looked at the potential. Okay, moving on to implementable. What this is turning ideas into action. This is where a lot of people find more friction. Okay, because success comes from the execution. It doesn't come from just having a great idea. There's a million great ideas that have been buried and have died as soon as they started. Okay, break it down. What I'd like to say is just what is the first step? Just think of the first step. Okay, don't try to think of all of it. Hey, if we were to take the first step, what might this look like? Again, myself this year is it's simplicity and good enough. Hey, what's good enough, man? What's just something that we can do to make this happen? Okay, you'll be surprised if you have this conversation. Hey, what are your thoughts on how we might make this look? What's one of the easiest things you think we can take from this to implement? Man, that'll go a long way. I'll tell you, that'll go a long way. Fun to even go past this to envision about what it really can do for you if it's yourself is within your own world, your own scope, your own sphere. If it's for your business, okay. Again, so this is what the trap is. This is getting caught in the old way. And again, so what implementable does, it's going to open a door and it's going to remove the overthinking and it's going to help you avoid not taking action. So the old way looks like this. Hey, we need to plan everything perfectly before starting. By the way, I am so guilty. Perfectly before starting. This is what I'm talking about for me this year. Simplicity, okay, and good enough. I looked into it. We'll look into it when we have more time. You ever have more time? You never have more time. In fact, the reason you don't have more time is because you're not applying the Painless process, okay? You don't have more time. You need to find the time, make the time. We don't have the right people to execute this. Again, one of the great questions could be is, hey, let's not say, do we have the right person? What's just the first step we can't implement with what we do have? Okay. What if we put effort into it, it doesn't work? I'm going to say, I'm not going to talk about this. I have a whole nother philosophy about our efforts in a day and how fast we can use those by failing faster and redirecting our efforts. Okay. But you want to move into this. We need more information before deciding. Now that can be true, but what I'd like to say is if we were to go back, what's the information that we can decide to make it more applicable? And we might even say, we'll skip ahead and say, hey, how do we do that to make sure it's nuanced for our thing? But don't let this get you caught, okay? Because at the end, what this ends up doing is this is going to keep you stuck. It's going to be analysis paralysis. It's going to delay action because you're waiting for perfect conditions. Don't do that, okay? One of the last here on the pain part is nuancing, and this is the improved and the optimizing, okay? So every business is unique. Yes, it is. I understand that, okay? Listen, refine, and adjust it for maximum impact so that you can stay ahead. That's what nuancing is all about. Again, this is the old way. This is where you can be trapped. And again, this is how nuance helps solve that. The nuance eliminates the resisting feedback and refinement. So this is where you're open and you actively look for that in order to tweak this. And this might be a lot of businesses do this. You have a new process you're going to roll out with the sales team. You're doing something with customers. You've got a new product coming in. Instead of really going out there and asking and getting people's feedback, we're worried because we think they're going to say no or we're going to get this friction. Just so you know, the best way to overcome it is to get it, to hear it, and then to move past it by getting their feedback and their participation and their willingness to support it. Again, so this is, you might have stated this, right? We already know what works. Customer feedback is nice, but we have our way of doing things. And again, it's not that the customer's always right, but boy, the way this can be internal customers as well. So think about this. If you're a business owner, you're a CEO, you're somebody at the top, you're one of, an executive, a leader, I call them key individuals in the team. Man, are you even asking this with the people that you're working with? Man, this is powerful for internal to the company as well. Okay. If we have to change too much, maybe not be the right idea. I'll tell you, this is the reason businesses die, is because they're not willing to pivot, to change in order to understand where the business is going, where the market's going, etc. Don't do this. Just decide to at least find it and decide how things might be nuanced, right? We tried something similar before and it didn't work. Well, I'll tell you, it's not this. Okay. Don't get caught up and let these things move you. Ask the question of how do you nuance it? Let's wait and see if others do it first. Now you can say that too. I'll tell you, you'll be the last one to eat. Okay. It keeps you stuck. You're failing to evolve. It's resisting iterations and updates to it's ignoring the valuable insights. So don't get stuck. And that's what I think the importance of nuancing it is. Okay. Now we're going to get into the less. This is the less, which is the second half of Painless. And we're going to go through this a little bit quicker. It's simple again, but I want you to look at the top heading on what this is. And I want you to ask yourself, have you asked any of these questions? And remember, there are probably several more questions that come into this. But I want to talk about laborless. This is working smarter, not harder. And that's not necessarily as easy to do, right, as it is to be said. So it's easier said than done. But the question I would like to say is if we can eliminate the busy work, the other thing is in this world with AI, one of the other things we do with U to the X times your business to the Y is we say U to the AI times your business to the AI. We do have things and we are very big on implementing AI where possible. Don't be a hater on that because I'll tell you that is a fast way to be changing and becoming obsolete in the next few years. But it's not always about that, but it is simplifying, systematizing things and putting them together to make sure that there's a little bit less labor required, freeing up time so that you can spend that on truly what matters. Okay. Again, the old way is again, so how this helps avoid the old way is laborless is not, it's not working harder. Okay. It's working smarter. So again, you might have asked yourself this, oh, I have to do everything myself. No one else can do it right. That might be true, but I'll tell you, there are other things. In fact, in our business, we have one we refer to as the Lens 360 and Enable 360. And it's a way to take our thoughts and our visions and help other people be able to execute on this because you often will become the bottleneck if that's the case, right? Because you're the one who can do it. I'm the one, I'm the labor, I'm the person. We can't afford to automate or delegate because you might feel there's quality or there's a breakdown in processes or ideas or the strategy just doesn't work the same. If that's the case, then the business is less valuable. If you're more valuable, you probably have heard that statement as well. If we're not too busy, then we're not too productive. And this is the thought that being busy is being more productive. There can be some insights to this, but I still don't want to use that as a leverage. Just because you're busy does not mean you're more productive. Okay. Um, it's just easier to do it the old way. There are probably some truth to that just because it's changed. But I will tell you, I believe that the old way can be updated to be a new way. I don't trust anyone else to handle this. As a result, what this ends up doing is kind of leading to burnout, inefficiencies, lack of true scalability. A truly scalable business can have the owner out of the business for really infinite amounts of time. You can start with a week, you can then move to 2 to 3. Can you be gone for a month, etc.? But laborless is a critical thing for you and your teams. Effortless is the last one. Focus on the results, prioritize impact actions, and then reduce wasted effort so you can avoid the burnout. Again, what the effortless helps do is it helps spread. It helps avoid you spreading yourself too thin. So you might have asked questions like, "We have to be everywhere and we have to do everything. Every opportunity is worth chasing." And again, this is not the case. If you can look at the nuancing and fine tune it, we don't want to chase every. We want to chase the right. We want to find the right gold nuggets. If we just work harder, we'll get ahead. Saying no means missing out, and I can't afford to take a break to slow down. So a lot of these thoughts exist with people and they think it all is due to amount of effort. So if we come down to the bottom again, the results are we end up with wasted effort because that effort most likely could have been applied somewhere else, or we could have spent a little bit less time. Again, simple and good enough, and therefore we are focusing on the things that are not moving us forward. Creates exhaustion. It makes us really tired. So it's a great way to avoid it. At the end, if we can make things effortless, then our goal is to help make them stress us. So creating clarity. And I like to say clarity and calm. So what might we do? What might be a way to put some things in place to help improve the way we're making decisions around this or helping you feel like you can be in control without being the only one that needs to have control? And again, this is one of the things that makes it stressful. So if you're not doing stressless and you're going to operate in chaos, this is what some of that looks like is you're not going to have time to think because there's too much to do. You're going to say, hey, there's always a fire to be putting out. Are you stating that? Have you said that there's always a fire to be putting out? I can't step away without everything falling apart. Are you one of those business owners that feels that's the case? It might be truly the case, which is causing some stress. And my question is how can we look at finding those gold nuggets that we can apply that make things stressless? We'll figure it out as we go. And I don't know where to start. There's too much happening. And again, we can set ourselves and be in there. And the whole goal between Painless is to remove these things as obstacles. And again, what this results in is poor decision making, high anxiety, constantly being overwhelmed as part of it. One of our last ones here is seamless. And this is what we want to do. Our goal is to make everything flow. Okay. Aligning things, operations, communications, part of the experiences, and really the effort that we have that's effortless so that we find success. Don't get caught in the old way. Don't find the whole goal is to avoid things that break it out and makes it feel like it's not smooth. Okay. If we don't have a smooth system, we're not getting a smooth flow. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to do these things again. Hopefully you're not the person stating that everyone just does their thing their own way. That makes things not as seamless, right? If there's a lot of broken processes or what they're doing or how they're doing it's different. We'll fix the process later. We'll just get it done. Now that's not necessarily bad, but I would like to say if we're just going to get it done, what is good enough? And did we nuance it and think about the other things as well? No one follows the system anyway. That might be something that's going on. Our customers are used to it being this way. If that doesn't mean it's always a better way, okay, we'll handle the problems as they come up. And that one is actually not bad. But one of the things that you can do is that means that probably we don't have things in a place that allows them to be taken care of. And so what we're doing is if like again, the opposite part of this is instead of just handling when the problems come, if we do and we capture that, next time that comes up, we don't have to handle it because we're solving those things. Okay. So we want to, at the end, look at what we can do to make everything seamless. Results are, if you're not, again, this is the result. If you're in the old way, what it's going to do is create inconsistency, miscommunication, and you're going to add customer frustration. So again, what we want to do is we want to use, if we think about this with some of the training you're going through, we're really looking at the top to go through and we're looking at seeing beyond the surface. We're really looking at making it work for you as applicability, really turning ideas into actions. What we're hoping to do is we're going to nuance it to improve it to what we need to do, working smarter not harder on laborless. We're looking at focusing on the results and effortless. We're looking at helping us create clarity in what we're doing to reduce and have less stress in the system, less stress on us. We really want things to flow seamlessly. Okay. So the painless is about seeing things that you can actually use to grow and scale, eliminating the chaos, a lot of the challenges that exist. Okay, it's not about working harder. It is about you working smarter, and most importantly, you don't become a prisoner to your own business. Okay, you become the one who has the vision, and you get to sit behind and design that. That's an important part. Okay, this isn't just a theory. This has been proven in businesses like yours, and some of the most recent successes. This is one last year that I thought was really great. One of the business owners took something and started off in their new venture, and it was about at a 500K deficit. And as they worked through this, and as they were to look at plausibility and what they were going to do, as they put together a few things, they were able to move that from a minus, 500K to a plus 500, so $1 million swing in their year, which is phenomenal. That was really big. That was a business that was about a $2.5 to $3 million business moving to 3.5 to 4. So that was a really big shift for them as well. Another one is another 7-figure entrepreneur came into the business. And here's the thing is they were able to cut their time down significantly while they doubled revenue within the time and they were able to launch another company. And they did all this within 4 months again. And it's not just because of the painless. Again, painless is one of the things that I like to take through with teams and owners as we begin to implement other strategies from our Bridge 360 and our Autopilot 360. I always feel that there's a really important mix between the individuals who facilitate and own and run businesses and their key team members and the way they think about the processes. I have found that even though you might have the most amazing processes, that people can break those and people can make those. And I'm a really big person on leadership and development on the way we see things. And that's why I talked about the curiosity kind of when I mentioned that is a big one. Okay. Another big one is CEO's first major vacation with another one. Business was on a downward spiral. Put several things in place for them as they started to look at. And to me, this is probably one of the biggest. She was in the business, and I'll tell you, every time we had conversations, it was the opposite side of painless. And so it wasn't plausibility. It wasn't how things were applicable. It's like, this isn't going to work, or here's what was currently going on. I'm like, hey, let's step back and start asking a different set of questions about this. And because of that, it helped simplify the business, quite a bit. And so the strategy on how they were applying this and how we applied it to the products, how we applied it to their offerings, and their personal workload changed drastically. So all this happened while they were able to grow their business by 50%. And they were able to take their first major vacation that they haven't had in 4 years. So it was a great deal. And again, this happens over and over and over with different entrepreneurs as we're able to work with them. Your options, again, my big thing, my recommendation is take advantage of the workbook that we have. Your options, stay stuck or step up, really, keep working harder, adding more complexity, hoping things are going to change or eventually get easier. You're going to try to figure it out on your own. You're going to waste times and months. Trust me, this is my whole process. It took me, again, 14 years to take a business and double it. Once I understood and I had a few things and that I was able to work with, and through some mentorship and some other things, triple business in 3 years. You can crack the code. It doesn't require that much difference. And I like to say this, really the other thing is you can take advantage of this booklet that we have. It's no cost for you to download. It'll help look at how you can become different than the 89% of most of the people who fail. begin to understand what this actually looks like and feels like. If this is for you and this is something that you're interested in and finding golden nuggets and getting a little bit more and understanding what painless is, I would ask and say, hey, and the links below, feel free to download those and feel free also to book a strategy call with this if you want to do so. Again, we'll put a couple links in the file underneath the video. If you're watching this on one of our streaming channels, I would encourage you to go ahead and follow me, like, subscribe if this is YouTube, if this is you're with me on LinkedIn, if you're on with Facebook, join the groups. We also have some free communities. We have a free Facebook community, and we also have our Thrive Growth Academy, where we have a lot of these things. In fact, what I do on that one is we work through, I have this workbook, but we have some additional worksheets that come along with this as well that you can use, that are actually step-by-step worksheets that you can use. And so what we do is, our goal is to help entrepreneurs, like I said, the entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs, and I call them their key people in their businesses to find success as they're moving forward, in order to help them kind of build and get to the dream life that they want to have. So if that's you, reach out, find more. If not, I enjoy and wish you the best. And we hope to bring you a lot more great content like this as I share some of the more of the other frameworks that I have, and hopefully I can inspire you to be in a different and a better place. So I take advantage, find the gold nuggets in life, use the painless method to make business and make your life painless. So with all that, thanks for joining.